Welcome back to Movies TV Man. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Man, and welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCEU Daily. James Bond, yes, I'm saying the words and the names James Bond on a DCEU video. The James Bond franchise was the first franchise ever created. Let me tell you let me name drop a few early kind of franchises before Kevin Feige was even born, right? You've got the James Bond franchise, then you've got the Carry On franchise. Probably most of you have never heard of Carry On. There was 20, 30 films, they were comedies, they were kind of lewd comedies, but they went on and they were loved. But James Bond, that franchise is the gold standard. You know, producer Cubby Broccoli got hold of the IP and he made wonders with it. There wasn't any pressure back then because Cubby Broccoli was the Kevin Feige of movie franchises back then. There was only really the Bond franchise there. But the man was a pioneer and he created something wonderful. And today we're seeing the latest film, No Time to Die, not one of my favourite versions of a Bond movie, but still, it's on the cusp of a wave of making 800 million globally, which is amazing in a COVID pandemic era as well. The DCEU is kind of an example of how executives think, but it's a weird example as well. When you look at who was running Warner Brothers back then, aka Kevin Sujihara, it's always strange to me when I think about the DCEU because they'd obviously been watching for at least 2 or 3 years what was going on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So think about this. Man of Steel came about after a year, 1 year after Avengers Assemble. Avengers Assemble is the thing that took Kevin Feige and the MCU to another level of popularity that no franchise has ever seen. But before that, they were struggling. But that movie changed everything. So the DCEU knew that. So they started work, I think, about 2011, 2012. So they would have known kind of what was happening at the MCU with Avengers Assemble, the first movie written and directed by Joss Whedon. So they knew what was going on. So they decided in their minds that to compete with this, they should bring in Christopher Nolan, and Christopher Nolan decided to bring in Zack Snyder. Now, you know what I think about Snyder's DCEU, but it's interesting because is this the best decision to compete with Disney and Marvel Studios? Was this really going to do it? No. Would this have created a unique take on these DC characters and DC universes? Yes, it did. And the completion of his vision would have been sensational. It wouldn't have made the money, ever. As much money as Feige's MCU, it wouldn't. Because Feige's MCU is branded as family friendly and kid friendly. It's a bit like Russell T Davies' 5 years as Doctor Who showrunner. It's very family friendly. The family, the kids, the dads, the mums, the dads and the dads, the mums and the mums, we're all sitting together watching this on a Saturday night. And that's what the MCU still is. Because Feige's insisted on keeping it PG-13 on the most part. Now, and I know Deadpool is going to be, well, it's going to be the MCU's first R-rated movie. If they stick to that, that will be interesting. So I don't understand what their thinking was. I like Zack Snyder. I like his DC movies, but I still don't understand what the thinking was. There's no thinking there whatsoever because Christopher Nolan is brought in someone like him, someone who's got a business partnership with his wife, as Chris and Emma have. So basically, he went and found kind of the version of him. And let's be honest, Snyder's very different in his style and mentality to Nolan, but they're kind of the same kind of artists in another way as well. They're both auteurs, so it's interesting. Of course, Christopher Nolan is going to get another auteur. So Warner Brothers kind of say, right, Christopher Nolan, everyone loves him for the Dark Knight trilogy. What could possibly go wrong? So you don't think intelligently, tactically about what you want to do. So we were having this discussion yesterday. Really, this is a kind of follow-on, continuation of this discussion. Because I think it's fascinating. And if you're going to do that, you have to go the full journey with said auteur director, which they didn't do. Once they saw the reactions, they were stepping back and they just wanted to jump on the MCU train. But the MCU earned the right to get to Avengers Assemble. That's the difference. Sujihara and WB and DC wanted to get there cheaply and easily. You know, Feige had suffered with the reactions of Iron Man 2 and The Incredible Hulk and Thor, etc, etc. Captain America, the First Avenger, film actually I think is not bad. I think the first Thor isn't bad. But there you go. And at least phase 1 of the MCU were proper movies. It wasn't really about the crossovers and the cameos then. They actually focused on each individual movie, but it was still a stepping stone to the overall universe, which was genius. So they had earned the right to get to Avengers Assemble. Now Zack Snyder had earned the right to get to his Justice League movie because by then he did Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, David Ayer's Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman. You know, movies he had a little bit of a part of. Obviously Man of Steel and BVS were his babies, and the Justice League movie was going to be his baby, so he would have earned the right at that point to have a Justice League movie. It makes sense. And then he was going to do another 2, and by then his arc would have been finished and he was going to do a Flashpoint. Basically where we are now with the DCEU after it's been messed up because of so many different voices being involved, Snyder was going to do that anyway. And I'm kind of miffed that they just didn't allow him to stay there and just take the shit. Because the money was coming in. It wasn't great record-breaking money, but the money was coming in. So it's weird. Once you make the decision to go with Snyder, it makes no sense to bring in Joss Whedon to brighten the colour palette up and, well, do whatever he did to Henry Cavill's upper lip. I mean, I remember sitting there watching Justice League, and it starts off okay, but very quickly you find out this is not a Zack Snyder film. And they were never going to get away with it. They should have just allowed Snyder to finish his arc, then bring in somebody else. This is what they do in comics. They let someone do their arc, their comics, and then someone else comes in, and someone else comes in. You know, for a long time, one comic book writer will write Superman, that person will step down, and somebody else will come in. This is exactly what's going to happen with Zack Snyder. Finish his arc. It's all neat and tidy. Then a new creative came in. Could have been Joss Whedon, could have been anyone. But they didn't do that. They lost their nerve at the end of the day. And that was the moment that the DCEU was going to be haunted forever and tainted forever. And it is tainted because it was one thing and now it's another. We go from dark, gritty, compelling, interesting storytelling to Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 84, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which is a slight improvement, but it's not what Snyder was giving us. The Suicide Squad is not the best DCEU movie. A lot of people were saying that when it was first released. I wonder if those same people still agree with that. By the way, if you think that James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is still the best DCEU movie ever, comment down below and let me know. If you've changed your mind about that, just be honest. It's okay to be wrong. I never thought it was the best DCEU movie ever, not even close, by the way. That's just my opinion. I think it's a very good movie. I enjoy it. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the first Guardians, by the way. I think it's more on a level playing field of Guardians 2. Now, I really like Guardians 2 because it's slightly darker. And what they do with, you know, Kurt Russell and Chris Pratt in that film, I think it's darker. And I think that's why the critics and the shields hated it. But it's interesting. So, yeah, I don't even think The Suicide Squad is James Gunn's best work. It may not even be better than his Scooby-Doo movie, although I am biased towards his Scooby-Doo movie. But I like James Gunn as a director. But as I said many times, and I'm sure James understands and agrees with this, unless he's overly biased about himself, that, you know what, James, you are a one-trick pony. There's only one thing you know how to do, and that's okay. And it's a good film. I enjoyed it, but it's nowhere near not only one of the best DCEU movies, but one of the best DC or comic book movies ever made. It is not. It's good. You get half of a cigar, not a whole one. And these are the consequences, right? It's not like Snyder was some crazy director that, you know, I mean, some people may think this, but it wasn't like Man of Steel was a flop that made no money, or BVS was a film that made no money. Do you understand? And even the vision of what he wanted David to do in the Suicide Squad movie, what he wanted, you know, he definitely wanted the first Wonder Woman to be a lot darker. He wanted the costume to stay darker. You know, if his choice of director and not Jeff Johns, because Patty, I can tell you this now, and I've told you this before, Patty was Jeff Johns' choice, not Zack Snyder's. And obviously Snyder's kind of alluded that it was his choice, but it wasn't. It was Jeff Johns' choice. That's why they're good pals forever. And this is why the film was brightened up. But Snyder was there to stop them, to make sure the film wasn't a disaster. And that's why Wonder Woman 2017 isn't a disaster. We've discussed this also before. Because Alan Heinberg and Zack Snyder wrote the story, and Alan, a comic book writer who had wrote loads of Wonder Woman before, wrote the screenplay. And his screenplay is beautiful. Because, you know, Snyder is a talented person, and he brings in talented people. His casting of these superheroes in the DC universe is phenomenal. It's fabulous. You just stick with his arc, let him finish it. No release the Snyder Cut, no restore the Snyderverse. He tells his fans, right, guys, we've done Justice League 3. Ben's going to do his Batfleck movie. Then we're going to have a Flashpoint scenario, so the franchise can start again with a new creative, and that's that. Follow me over to Netflix where I'm going to do this, that and the other. We all live happily ever after. That's what could have happened. But instead, it was an utter mess. And this is entertainment today. And I believe, even though this similar thing happened to Dick Donner, when you think about Superman 2 compared and opposed to Justice League, Superman 2 is actually a very good film. Now, and I'm not sure how different Dick Donner's version would have been, but I like the Donner cut, but it's still a lot of sequences he has to take from Richard Lester, so it's not his true vision. For me, Lester's cut of Superman 2 is really good. It works. It's about 2 hours long. It's the first time my young eyes and my young mind ever saw a superhero fighting supervillains, and it was great. And even the story, the emotional romantic story, him giving up his powers for Lois, it's great. But Justice League it's a clusterfuck. It really is. And it's embarrassing. That film should never have been released in the public, into the public domain. But it was. And it's going to be one of Warner Brothers' most embarrassing episodes. Now, thank fuck that Discovery and Zaslav are coming in, and they can replace all these idiots who were involved in that, and we can start again. This should never have happened. Because it's messy now to finish Snyder's vision. I want it finished. I don't want you to misunderstand me, but it's a lot of a messier scenario. First of all, you have to wait years because he's busy with Rebel Moon. So let's see what happens, but we should never be here now, and it's a mess. So now you're enacting Flashpoint, and nobody knows if this is going to work. If Flashpoint, which is supposed to reboot the entire franchise and universe, if this is going to work. It's a massive year next year. 4 movies, another 2 on HBO Max. This has to work. And it has to work in major money terms. The Batman has to cross $1 billion. The Flash movie and Black Adam, definitely, excuse me, Black Adam and the Flash movie have to cross $1 billion. And considering Aquaman crossed $1 billion last time, it needs to be there and about again. These films are under pressure to be successful, but not just be successful, be popular with the critics and a broader audience. Or it's finished. There is no DCEU. If one of these films fail, it's over. So, I expect The Batman to be a great movie. I expect Black Adam to be a great movie. I'm excited about The Flash in its damn this throat. I expect The Flash to be interesting in its concept and ideas, but I don't know if it's going to be a good put together movie. I trust Andy Muschietti. He certainly talks a good game. We're going to have to wait and see. He does lack experience, but that doesn't mean anything. Talent, talent is there. He was chosen for a reason, mostly because Walter Hamada knew him from New Line Cinema. So, you know, we're there and we got Christina Hodgson writing, or who has written the script. So I don't actually know if the Flash movie is going to be a great movie. Just like I don't know if Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be a great movie. These things, these Easter egg hunt movies now are experimental. You know, diving into the multiverse, bringing back people we've watched in the past because it's easy fan service. We'll have to wait and see. And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I have the same opinion about it. I'm very excited, but there's no guarantee it's going to be a great movie. So we'll just have to wait and see. But just going back to my first point, if you're going to be as experimental as to have Christopher Nolan, Godfather, a DCEU franchise, and then Zack Snyder come in and do something truly amazing and experimental, you've got to let it play out. You've got to let it finish. Because we've seen what happens when you don't. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye.